Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 1, Text 55. Shri Sukha Uvacha Svasurvadani Varvrita Kamsastad Vakyasaravit Vasudevo Pitam Prita Rasasya Pravisat Griham. Shri Sukha Uvacha. Shri Sukadev Goswami said, Svasuhu, of his sister Devaki, Vadhat, from the act of killing, Nivavrite, stopped for the time being, Kamsaha, comes, Tatvakya, the words of Vasudev, Saravit, knowing to be perfectly correct, Vasudevaha, Vasudev, Api, also, Tam, to him, Kamsa, Pritaha, being satisfied, Prasasya, pacifying more, Pravishat Griham, entered his own home. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Sukadev Goswami continued, Kams agreed to the logical arguments of Vasudev, and having full faith in Vasudev's words, he refrained from killing his sister. Vasudev, being pleased with Kamsa, pacified him further and entered his own house. Purport. Although Kams was a sinful demon, he believed that Vasudev would never deviate from his word. The character of a pure devotee like Vasudev is such that even so great a demon as Kamsa firmly believed in his words and was satisfied. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarver gunais tatra samasate suraha. Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12. All good attributes are present in a devotee, so much so that even Kamsa believed in Vasudev's words without a doubt. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Budle Shrimati Bhakti Viranta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachayani Nirvishesa Sunivari Paschati Desatarani Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshuram Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. There are many instances that we read in the Srimad Bhagavatam of quick decisions that have to be made, and sometimes they're made without full consideration of what the consequences are going to be. Now, this conversation between Vasudev and Kamsa is one of those examples. We have other examples, such as the decision made by Shringi to curse Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj also, in somewhat a altered state, he was thirsty, he was tired, and when he wasn't offered a proper reception by the father of Shringi, Samik Rishi, in a fit of spur of the moment, he took a dead snake and wrapped it around Samik Rishi's neck. And Shringi, without considering what the consequences would be, due to false pride, he cursed Parikshit Maharaj to die within 7 days. Then we have the example of Daksha. Daksha, due to his false pride, though Lord Shiva is practically on the same level of the Supreme Lord and was sitting in deep meditation on the Lord, Daksha, due to his false pride, he also insulted Shiva and cursed him, and so many repercussions happened from that. There was cursing, counter-cursing that's going on even to this present day. The situation of the Shivites being atheists, the Brahmanas only being interested in what they get from their sacrifices, all of these things originated from that spur-of-the-moment wrong decision of Daksha Maharaj. Then we have Durvasa Muni and Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj he was acclaimed as a pure devotee of the Lord, and due to his pure character, he was honored, though he was a grihastha and he was a kshatriya. And Durvasa Muni, being an ascetic sage, he couldn't tolerate that a grihastha kshatriya was being put on a higher level than himself. So out of envy, out of false pride, he devised a mechanism whereby he could display his great Brahma Tejas by cursing and actually trying to kill an innocent pure devotee such as Ambarish Maharaj. And the consequences were that it all came back on him, and he had to fall at the feet of that devotee, Ambarish. So sometimes when we make quick decisions and we don't think before we act, there are great consequences that we have to suffer. So this is the fourth example in the Srimad Bhagavatam of when the omen was spoken by the demigods to hasten the appearance of the Supreme Lord and to prod Kamsa to engage in more sinful activities. Kamsa, because of his demoniac nature, by his very svabhav, he didn't think through fully what was going to happen if he actually murdered his own sister in broad daylight in front of thousands of people. And there wasn't only one chariot, there were 1,800 chariots there, 10,000 horses, 400 elephants, 200 maidens serving Devaki. It was a huge procession. And he was ready to immediately kill her simply because of the omen that was spoken by an unembodied voice. So Vasudev, being a pure devotee, liberated, one of the eternal associates of the Lord, he also had to act very quickly. But because of the modes of nature and his very character, he was able to use his intelligence to pacify and finally to convince Kamsa not to kill his sister. We've heard over the last few days about the different aspects of diplomacy that he used. First, he used Sama, and within Sama there are 5 different aspects. The first is relations, sambandh. So immediately, the first thing, because in his heart he was fearful, he was full of anxiety when he saw Kamsa ready to kill her, but he immediately began to praise and pacify Kamsa because of the sambandh. He said, "You're the greatest of all the Bhoja dynasty. You're the king of kings." Yes, he was greatest of the Bhoja dynasty, but where did that Bhoja dynasty come from? That we have to remember. We spoke a few days ago about this Bhoja dynasty, and that also was from a very long time back. When Yayati was cursed, he had 5 sons. 2 of those sons were by Devayani, that's Yadu, and Turvasu. And then 3 of those sons, when Sharmishta saw that Devayani had a son, she desired a son also. And she approached Yayati at the proper time, and he gave her a son, and that son was Druhu. Now, so Druhu was the first son of Sharmishta, and then she had 2 more sons by Yayati, Anu and finally Puru. Now, Devayani, when she found out about all of this, Yayati was cursed by Sukracharya. And when Yayati approached his 5 sons, Yadu, on a proper excuse, he refused his father, though his father wasn't pleased with him. He said, it's already predicted that the Supreme Lord is going to appear in my dynasty. If I can't produce progeny, how will he appear? So I can't give you my youth. My youth means potency, in order to engage in sense gratification. And then the next son, he refused, of Devayani's. And then this 3rd son, Druhu. Now these 3 middle sons, they had no excuse why they shouldn't follow the order of their father. That was Turvasu, Druhu, and Anu. They simply said, no, we also, because we've taken this birth, we have desires, we also need to enjoy. Otherwise our life will become futile and we won't be able to attain liberation. This is the materialist's philosophy, that I have to enjoy, I have to fulfill all my senses, and then when I'm fully satiated, then I'll see, because there's dharma, artha, kam, and then moksha. So when I have full kam, then I'll think of moksha. So these 3 sons, they refused Yayati. And Druhu, Yayati, as a result, he banished the sons to different parts of the world. One had to go to Turkey, one had to go to Greece, and Druhu, he went to southern India, and from him came the Bhoja dynasty. So from this seed, now in this, calling someone Bhojendra, it's not really a compliment, because it was a banished dynasty. So he was, through this first sambandha, that you're a great king, you're a famous hero, you're king of the Bhojas, king of all the kings, yes, all the demoniac kings. So then came gain. What will you gain from killing your own sister? You have such a great reputation all over the world. Better you think about it first, because if you kill her, your reputation will be lost. Then welfare. Welfare is that you're doing so many great benevolent activities. You're called Dinavatsala. Now, he was called Dinavatsala because when he would extract taxes from people, if they couldn't pay, he would take their calves away. So in that way, Dinavatsala, he would, from the poor people, he would take their calves away, the Vatsas. But he was called Dinavatsala for that reason. So anyway, anyhow, Vasudeva was trying to pacify, and just as, why do we offer so many names of Krishna every morning? As soon as he wakes up in the morning, we start glorifying him. It's a very natural proclivity. Coming from the Supreme Lord, we all like to hear our own glories. So as Kamsa was about to kill her, Vasudeva starts. You're king of the kings, you're Dinavatsala, you're doing so much welfare, you're known as charitable, benevolent, anything he could throw out to stop Kamsa. Then, identity. Identity means, now actually Ugrasen and Devaka were brothers. So they were cousin, sister, and brother, Devaki and Kamsa. So his identity was that you are the surit of this svasur, of your little sister. How can you possibly, understanding your intimate relationship with your sister, how is it possible that you can kill her. So that's identity. And then finally, glorification. So Vasudeva, because he had full control of his mind, he was in spur of the moment, within a few seconds, because he knew diplomatically how to pacify an enemy. He used all 5 of these different types of sama, but it didn't work. So then he tried beta. Beta means, well, just think, if you actually kill her because she's your sister, such a great war will happen between the 2 families. So many people will die as a result of this one death. And it's not even your sister that you have to worry about. It's her sons you have to worry about. So he tried beta also. Kamsa wasn't interested. So then finally, Dana, that was in the previous verse, that I'll give you all the sons, don't worry. You do whatever you want with those sons. And then Kamsa, because he trusted Vasudeva. And this particular sloka that Prabhupada is quoting in this purport, this comes from something that Prahlad Maharaj. Now, usually when we think of Prahlad Maharaj and his prayers to Nrsimhadev, we think of the 7th canto. But this particular sloka comes from the 5th canto. Because when Sukadeva Goswami was describing the different locations in Jambudvip, now in Jambudvip, which is Bharatvarsha is a part of that, there are different incarnations of the Lord that are worshipped by their devotees. And in the part of Jambudvip called Harivarsha, Prahlad Maharaj and all of the devotees of Nrsimhadev are constantly offering Nrsimhadev beautiful prayers. And this is a part of one of the prayers, that your devotees, anyone who becomes a devotee, automatically all the qualities of the devas appear in his body. And conversely, anyone who is not a devotee of your Lordship, Nrsimhadev, he has no good qualities. And then Prahlad Maharaj went on to say that the materialists, they may be acclaimed as great scholars, as great scientists, but actually they have no knowledge of you, and therefore their life is useless. So this decision making is so important. Now the devotees have the opportunity to associate and to hear from more advanced devotees. And they get to learn from the Srimad Bhagavatam how to make proper decisions in their life so that they don't have to suffer consequences. Now, why did all these demons have to be killed by Krishna? That's explained later on in chapter 36 of the 10th canto, where Prabhupada, and also in the slokas, it's explained that all of these demons previously, they were on Bhuvarlok, different planets, and they were killed by the demigods. And the reason they were killed was because of their offenses. And therefore, they had to take birth on the earthly planet and attain salvation by being killed by the Supreme Lord. Now, there are 2 types of salvation that a demon can receive by being killed by the Lord. One is the ordinary demons who are killed by the Lord. Shishupal, Salva, Keshi, Arishta. They simply came, and out of hatred for the Lord, they attacked the Lord. And when the Lord killed them, they attained Sayujya Mukti. That means they merged into the Lord's body, just like we hear about when Aghasura burst out and then entered into the Lord's body. Then Shishupal, he entered into the Lord's body also. But there's a very special class of super demons, such as Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, and Kamsa. These 3 are especially mentioned. they don't attain Sayuja Mukti because they're thinking of the Lord. Kamsa, from the time that unembodied omen was heard by him, he thought of the Lord as Vishnu with the wheel in his hand. That means forearm Vishnu, but specifically that wheel was in his hand. And that wheel we know is Sudarshan Chakra, is also the time element, but that wheel is used to chop off the heads of the demons and to protect the devotees. So 24 hours he was meditating on Vishnu with the wheel in his hand. Day and night, walking, sitting, sleeping, eating, always thinking how much he hated him and how much he wanted to kill him. So when Krishna finally, because he was meditating, and in Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna explains that whatever you're thinking of at the time of death, you attain that nature. So because Kamsa was always thinking of Vishnu, forearm Vishnu, he actually attained Sarupya Mukti. He attained the form of Narayan in the Vaikuntha planets. That's explained later. We'll read about that later. But it's a big question. Devotees often ask that after classes. What happened to Kamsa after he died? So that's actually what happened. He attained Sarupya Mukti. Now when Kamsa did die, and of course we'll read about that later, it will be chapter 44, because he had been sending these demons out of his hatred. He wasn't sure who was actually killing the demons. His spies would talk about this little son of Nanda Maharaj. All of the pieces weren't fitting together yet. But then finally, at the very end of the pastimes, when Krishna was still in Braj, he sent Aristasura. All of his ministers had already been killed. There was only Arista and Keshi left. So he convinced Arista to go, and we know the pastime of Aristasura, how Krishna easily killed him. And then after Aristasura was killed, he stopped sending demons. He only had Keshi left, and he was in so much a fit of fear. If he sent Keshi, he wouldn't have anybody left to protect him, because he was actually a coward. He wouldn't go personally to kill Krishna. He was sending everybody else. So 1 year transpired, and Narada Muni, he was getting impatient because Narada Muni wanted Krishna to come and kill him. So at that time, Narada Muni came a second time. We're going to hear now how Narada Muni came a first time and told him that he heard, he was there when the demigods were planning to appear just to kill him and kill all the demons. So you have to kill everyone in the Yadu dynasty, you have to kill all the children. It was all Narada Muni's instigation. But then he came a second time. And when he came a second time, he told everything. He said, actually, Vasudeva took his son and he transferred it to the house of Nanda Maharaj. Mother Yasoda had a baby girl. He took that baby girl. That was Durga Devi when she went out of Braj. And the son of Vasudeva from Rohini, that's Balaram, the seventh son. He told Kamsa everything. And at that time, because now Kamsa is fully trusting, it says here, Saravit, he felt that anything Vasudeva said, because he knew Vasudeva's character as the minister of Ugrasen, he knew how upright he was, how saintly he was, that Vasudeva would never lie to him. So therefore he trusted that he would give him all of his sons. But then when he heard from Narada Muni that all these years Vasudeva had tricked him from the very start, and he never gave him the 8th son that he was looking for. He didn't even give him the 7th son. Then he locked up Vasudeva all over again, threw them both in jail. Ugrasen was in jail, and then he sent Keshi. So then Keshi got salvation also, Sayuja Mukti. And when that didn't work, then he made a huge plan, because Kamsa was actually, his worshipable deity was Kala Bhairavya. And Kala Bhairavya, he's worshipped in Baidyanath Dham. And there particularly, they worship by doing animal slaughter directly in front of the deity. And we know, because we celebrate Shivaratri, the Chaturdasi is a day that Lord Shiva is worshipped. So he had a big plan. With his demoniac brain, rather than using it how to serve Krishna, he had a big plan how to kill Krishna. So he called Akrura. Now Akrura, he's also demigod. He's saintly. He's part of the Yadu dynasty. But he was pretending to be Kamsa's associate because he wanted to see the Supreme Lord kill Kamsa. So when he called Akrura on Ekadasi, this is the Ekadasi before Shivaratri, he told Akrura, I prepared this beautiful chariot. I want you to bring the sons of Nanda Maharaj. We're going to have a big wrestling match, a big Dhanur Yagya on Shivaratri. I want all the cowherd men to come for the celebration. So, but he told Akrura, actually, I want to bring these two sons because I want to kill them. So I made this chariot especially, and I want you to fulfill this because I only trust you. For me, you're my Vishnu, and I'm your Indra, and I completely depend upon you for everything. This is the way he spoke to Akrura. He was also glorifying him. And Akrura, he was so happy because he would be able to go have darshan of Krishna and Balaram. So he gladly, next day, he didn't even break Ekadasi, he just immediately started for Braja. And he didn't break Ekadasi until that evening when Krishna and Balaram fed him. He was just so jubilant that he got to have their darshan. So then the next day on Trayodasi, he took them and they arrived in Mathura. And then they had their pastimes with the tailor. No, first came the washerman. They got all of Kamsa's clothes. And then the tailor was also a devotee of the Lord, but he was afraid to come to Vrindavan. But he knew all about Krishna, hearing about him from the other devotees. He made beautiful clothes. And then the florist, Sudama, he was also back and forth, so he knew about Krishna. He made beautiful garlands. So that night of Trayodasi, when Shivaratri was going to begin, that was when Kamsa had his nightmares. He saw his body without his head, he had no shadow, he was riding on a chariot of donkeys, all these things. It happened that night. And then the next morning, Krishna and Balaram, they're strolling to the arena with their cowherd boyfriends. Everyone's offering them so many gifts. The merchants in Mathura, the Brahmins are offering hymns. They come to the arena, and Kamsa has it set up because who does he have left now? He has his wrestlers, and he has Kuvaligapida, the mad elephant. So he sets them up. Kuvaligapida at the gate. He tells the Mahant, when these two boys come, you make sure Kuvaligapida kills them. So when Krishna Balaram arrived, everyone was telling Krishna, don't go near that elephant. He's mad. But Krishna just smiled, and he tricked the elephant in such a way that the elephant fell over and his tusks went into the earth. And Krishna then broke off the tusk, and with Kuvaligapita's own tusk, he smashed him and killed the elephant. And then the Mahant, who was also a demon, just like if you kill a person and there are lice on his head, so you don't worry about the lice, the person's dead. So Kuvaligapita was dead, and the Mahant, he was just like one of the lice on Kuvaligapita's head. Krishna didn't care about him. Easily he killed him. Actually, he was crushed. So then, Krishna and Balaram, they each have these tusks, and they're now decorated with the blood of Kuvaligapita. And in that way, they enter into the arena. And Kamsa, who had been meditating on Krishna all these years, he finally sees the two boys. And in fear, he says, who are they? Who are they? And it is they. It is Krishna and Balaram. Why do they have red all over them? Oh, that is the blood of Kuvalayapita. What are those things in their hands? That is Kuvalayapita's tusks. And Kamsa couldn't believe it. He said, these are just useless words. Nothing you're saying is true. It's impossible. So then, Krishna and Balaram, Krishna, of course we're jumping ahead because this is to understand the nature of Kamsa. Living in fear, always making the wrong decisions because he didn't think things out properly. Now, every living entity, because it's also going on in the spiritual world, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So everyone according to our modes of nature. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-Gita how one in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance eats, how he gives charity, how he does renunciation. All of these things are explained. So Kamsa, being of demoniac nature, all of his eating, sleeping, defending, and mating also, it was all in the mode of ignorance. So his only way to defend was through violence and through wrong decisions. So then he sent the wrestlers to kill Krishna. Krishna and Balaram easily killed the wrestlers. And when Kamsa saw he had nobody else to protect him, then he decided he was going to capture Nanda Maharaj, take all of his land away, kill Vasudeva, kill Ugrasen. So he stopped the music, and Krishna, who had just killed all of the wrestlers, powerful wrestlers, he completely ignored Kamsa. He began dancing and wrestling with his cowherd boyfriends in the arena. And cowherd boyfriends easily defeated Krishna. They pinned him down. Krishna was struggling. And Kamsa couldn't understand. He said, he just killed Mustika, all the demons, and now his cowherd boyfriends have defeated him. Because Krishna, that's his Leela with his friends. He allows them to defeat him. He allows his devotees to take charge of him. So Kamsa, when he started offending Vasudeva and Nanda Maharaj, both fathers, then Krishna decided it was time to kill Kamsa. He jumped up, he grabbed his hair, just like sometimes there's a little animal like a rabbit, and a hawk will swoop down and just grab the rabbit's back and take him away. That's how Krishna grabbed Kamsa. He grabbed him, he dragged him around, and Kamsa was so scared, although he lifted up his sword, he couldn't do anything because he couldn't understand how Krishna had grabbed him by the hair and was dragging him all around. And his eyes were open with fear. And in that condition, he died with his eyes wide open in fear. So nobody could believe that Kamsa had actually died because his eyes were still open. So then to prove to everyone, to bring them more pleasure, he dragged Kamsa into the arena, and with his left hand he started dragging him all around, making a trench in the arena with his body. And then Kamsa had 8 brothers. Because Kamsa was the eldest, all the 8 brothers followed him. They were headed by Kanka. They all came to attack Krishna. And because Balaram was the son of Rohini, Krishna had transgressed morality by killing his mama, Kamsa. So he didn't want to kill more uncles. He had Balaram do it. Now Rohini is not the sister of Devaki. Rohini is a sister of Vidura. And therefore, when Balaram killed these brothers of Kamsa, he wasn't killing his uncles. Vasudeva, on the other hand, he was the brother-in-law of Vidura in 2 ways, because his sister was married to Vidura's brother Pandu, and his wife was married to Vidura's sister. So they had a very close relationship, Vasudeva and Vidura. So Balaram then killed the 8 brothers, and Balaram and other helpers, they started dragging their bodies around. So this was a great festival for all the devotees. And the saintly persons at that time, they concluded that all of these demons, because they were big demons in their last lifetime, they were able to take birth now and be killed by Krishna so they could attain salvation. And Kamsa, over and above all of them, he was able to actually go back to Vaikuntha, just like Putana. She was able to go to Braj and become one of the nurse mothers of Krishna. So this is the wonderful quality of Krishna's pastimes. And the deeper we go into trying to understand Krishna's pastimes, the more ecstasy we attain, because we understand how intelligent Krishna is, how wonderful his devotees are. Now when Lord Krishna appeared as Sri Gaur Sundar, and he was contemplating taking sannyas, all of the residents of Navadvip, they became filled with fear. How could they live without Gaur Sundar? And especially his mother. She was so frightened that Sachinandan was going to leave her, that she stopped eating. She became so frail, so thin, that Mahaprabhu, he was afraid his mother was going to die out of separation, though he hadn't even left yet. So he took her to a secret place, a solitary place, so just the two of them can speak. And he explained to his mother, he said, "You are my eternal mother. We're never separated. You were Prishni, and I became your son. Then you were Aditi in the heavenly planets, and I incarnated as Vamanadev, as your son. Then you became Devahuti, and I incarnated as Kapiladev. And then the next one, now you have become Devaki, and then you became Devaki, and I incarnated as your son Vasudev. Now, as Sachudevi, I have again incarnated as your son Vishvambar. I have 2 more incarnations to take, and you will be my mother in those 2 incarnations also. Those incarnations we are able to see. Those incarnations are described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Lila, chapter 36. Sachinandan told his mother, the first incarnation is as the Archa Vigraha, and the second incarnation is as sound vibration. The Archa Vigraha is made from earth. The Archa Vigraha is fashioned from clay, from stone, from wood, all aspects of the earth. And the incarnation of the sound vibration, that's coming from the tongue. So in these 2 incarnations, you will be earth and you will be the tongue. And in that way, even in my 2 incarnations as the Vigraha and the holy name, you will still always be with me. So when we see Mahaprabhu, Sri Sri Chaitanya Nitai, Sachidevi is also there with him in the aspect of what he's composed of. And when we're chanting the holy name, because the holy name is vibrated from our tongue, that tongue is also the mother of the holy name. That also is Sachidevi. So when Sachidevi heard these 2 incarnations and how she would also be present, she became pacified, and then her son took sannyas. So these are wonderful pastimes of the Lord, how he appears with his devotees. Now, not all devotees go back to Godhead at the end of Krishna's pastimes. There are 3 different types of humans. Some of them are Jivan Muktas, such as Sukadev Goswami. He was purely liberated, and therefore he was able to speak Srimad Bhagavatam. And then there are the Mumukshus, Mumukshus are such as Parikshit Maharaj. He was aspiring for liberation, and therefore he wanted to hear the pastimes of the Lord. And then the third type are those who are simply engaged in sense gratification. They don't have any interest in hearing about the glories of the Supreme Lord. But the mumukshas, such as ourselves, hopefully, we're not interested in sense gratification. We're here to hear about the glories of the Lord, because we know that by constantly hearing about the Lord, we'll be able to become purified and attain that stage of liberation, because the mumukshas are not interested anymore in sense gratification. Whereas the demons, according to the type of demoniac species they're born in, their only concern is sense gratification. Now, we're talking about demons that take birth as humans, such as Kamsa and the other demons. But the low-grade demons who have to fall down into hellish species, they're also engaged in the same activities: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But their eating, sleeping, and particularly their defending are so demoniac, we can't even understand. We can watch the lower grade animals and see how much they suffer in these four activities. And those who are only engaged in sense gratification, because they make the wrong decisions in their life, they also have to suffer. So when we make any decision in our life, we have to be like Vasudeva. We have to think, savadani. We have to be very cautious, because anything that we decide, there are going to be consequences. Are these consequences going to help us advance in our Krishna consciousness, or are we going to be committing an offense that's going to drag us down, and then we won't be able to make make advancement? When we're in Krishna consciousness, this is described in the Nectar Devotion, that if we commit offense, our devotional service becomes just like the waning moon. Waning moon, it's almost gone. The moon is still there, but you can't see it. So when we commit different offenses, and there's so many different types of offenses we have to be cautious of. There's Guru Aparad, Vaishnava Aparad, Dhamma Aparad, Seva Aparad. All of these offenses, this is why we study first, and this is why Prabhupada first and foremost translated the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Because within that book, all of these offenses are listed. 32 offenses from one Purana, 32 offenses from another Purana, and examples are given in the Srimad Bhagavatam of what happens when devotees carelessly commit offenses. For instance, some of the demons that Krishna killed in Vrajadam, they were devotees, but they forgot to wash a tulsi leaf before they offered it, so their father cursed them to become a demon, to be killed by Krishna. We can hear about these stories later. They were actually devotees who committed offense in their sevas, or to their guru. One of them pointed his legs towards his guru, so you're just like a bull, become a Ristasura, like that. They were actually devotees who committed offenses and therefore had to take demoniac births. Nahusha, he was very elevated. He offended the saints. He had to take birth as a big python. So it's not that once you come to the platform, once you dress up like a Vaishnava, you're exempt. No, every moment, our mind, accepting and rejecting. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I say this? Should I say that? So we have to become just like Vasudeva, very cautious. Even Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, and Kamsa, they were considered to be great jnanis. Kamsa knew everything. He was able to defeat all of the great kings at that time. He was very powerful. Jarasandha, very powerful. Jarasandha was the incarnation of fruitive activities. He knew how to do everything for his sense gratification. These were great gyanis, these three demons. But because they were brahmacharis, their knowledge was not shown in their activities. Therefore, the Lord had to come and kill them. Because they were so powerful, the Lord personally had to come and kill these three demons. So we, as we're trying to be devotees, we don't want to fall down, and therefore we have to be very cautious not to commit offenses, because there's no guarantee. Krishna says, my devotee will never perish. But if we commit offenses temporarily, our devotional service might be blocked. So here we are in the Holy Dham. It's the Purushottam month. After Purushottam month, soon will come Kartik month. We have every opportunity to make the greatest advancement to go back to Godhead. And at the same time, we have to think very carefully not to commit offense, to only act as prescribed in the nectar devotion and as given by the orders of our spiritual master. Now, each spiritual master may give different orders to his disciples, because each spiritual master may have received different orders from his spiritual master. For instance, our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, three times, he was told by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to preach in the English language. If you ever get money, print books. Again, it'll do great benefit if you preach in English. So these were specific instructions given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to Srila Prabhupada. And we, as the followers of Srila Prabhupada, we are simply trying to assist Prabhupada in carrying out those specific instructions. Other God brothers might have received different instructions, but we're not interested. We're only interested in carrying out the instructions through the parampara that we're coming from. If Prabhupada told us not to deviate, to simply concentrate on the instructions he gave us, that's our life and soul. So, and if we do deviate, that's called Guru Aparad. So we have to be very careful to stay within the instructions of our spiritual master, to not commit any offenses, because that will hinder our devotional progress. And finally, to aspire to get the service of Sri Krishna some way or other. And that service is awarded by the Guru when he's satisfied with our service. So this devotional process, we have to take it very seriously. After 8,400,000 species of life, even the scorpion life, there are 2,000 species of scorpions. Imagine having to take 2,000 lives as a scorpion. And scorpion life is so abominable. At the mating time, the female stings her mate to death and then eats him. And then when she gives birth, the babies sting the mother to death and then eat the mother. Now this is demoniac life. Who wants to take such a birth? So if we don't want to take demoniac birth, if we don't want to become demons like ourselves, we have to be very careful not to act like demons. We have to give full respect to our Guru Maharaj, to all the devotees who are trying to serve the Supreme Lord, to be very merciful to the innocent who are trying to learn about Krishna, and in that way we can make progress back to home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.